Hi everyone. Today we're looking at the January 1988 issue of Harper's Bazaar, Italy, which is entirely dedicated to runway imagery from that time. Of course, the magazine presents only highlights rather than complete shows, and this is precisely why these collections may appear chaotic, overloaded, or even incoherent when viewed like this. But here's the reason. In 1988, it was normal for big houses to send out 80 to sometimes 120 looks in a single show. These shows often lasted around 40 minutes and were divided into segments. Shows typically opened with tailored daywear, transitioned into more casual looks, and then moved into color or texture driven sections. More dramatic garments, like these cubist jackets from the same collection, belong to what was known as the theme characters segment, the theatrical core of the show. And no major runway presentation concluded without cocktail and evening wear. Each segment had its own music, lighting, and even a distinct model attitude. Compared to that, modern shows feel minimal. Around 45 looks, one theme, and everything is crafted for digital audience. But in the 80s, runways were built for buyers and editors, and these segments helped them understand categories and confidently place orders. So now that we know how these shows worked, we can dive into this unforgettable era in fashion design. 2025 marked Dolce and Gabbana's 40th anniversary, and these images date back to a moment when the brand was only 3 years old. Yet this season already defined Dolce& and Gabbana's signature style, a cinematic vision of the southern Italian woman. Remarkably, 38 years later, this woman remains the most recognizable pillar of the brand. Giorgio Armani, however, had his own idea of femininity. Armani rejected the belief that women needed to be sexy to be feminine. He offered fluent, drapey textures that were moving with the body and understated color palette. Armani's femininity was gentle and effortless. Back in the day, fashion press loved to contrast designers against each other, and Armani was often juxtaposed to Gianni Versace. Encapsulated in the famous saying, Armani dresses the wife, Versace dresses the mistress. Brands associated with effortless grown up Italian elegance would be Missoni and Max Mara. And now to the designer behind this issue's cover look, Gianfranco Ferre. Trained as an architect, Ferre's background was evident in everything he designed. Monumental silhouettes, sculptural volumes, statement blouses with architectural collars and cuffs. His muse was a woman who was wealthy, powerful, and intellectually assured. Shortly after, Ferre was going to be appointed the head designer for Christian Dior, becoming the first non-French designer leading the house. So let's segue to the Paris Fashion Week and examine Dior while it was still under the direction of Marc Bohan. This collection is sometimes the subject of ridicule, frequently described as cheap, costumey, or garish. I personally have no issue with the prints themselves. What undermines the look for me is the styling, particularly the headpieces, ribbon handbags, all paired with black nylons and gloves. Because if you look at these Dior haute couture looks from 1988, it is the same silhouette, but the whole look is quite elegant. That's the power of styling in action. And the styling of 1980s was maximalist, especially in Paris. There was no fear of being too much. Ready-to-wear collections in Paris looked like haute couture, and they did have couture-level attention to the details. Look at these sumptuous Emmanuel Ungaro looks. He was a king of prints, and his patterns were often clashing, but always in a beautifully balanced way. And here we see sartorial perfection from Chanel. Immaculately styled. Would you ever expect red tweed and black lace to form such an elegant combination? And now to the most radical designer of the era, Claude Montana. It is impossible to discuss the 1980s without mentioning him. If you picture the decade's power woman, sharp shoulders, leather, sculpted silhouettes, you're essentially imagining Montana. He didn't follow the 1980s aesthetic, he invented it. While many designers referenced historical couture and traditional French chic, Montana created his world with zero retro influence. No nostalgia, no romance. He was designing the future, not the past. His woman didn't come from aristocracy or couture traditions. She came from urban futurism, and she had to look invincible. And now we can fully appreciate Yohji Yamamoto's singularity, dark, minimal, and androgynous in the era obsessed with color and flash. That was the time when he got his reputation as an avant-garde master. Miyake, another designer of Japanese avant-garde wave, experimented not only with shapes but also with textures, new pleating techniques, industrial fabrics, experimental knitting. And Junko Shimada had one of the most memorable shows. Watch the video and you will see how she constructed the whole character, not just to look. And this floral segment has inspired me to create this lingerie set that I was showing in my previous video. I'll leave the link in the description below. We now arrive in West Germany, beginning with Escada, arguably the most recognizable German high-end fashion brand. The house remains in business today, but in 1988, Escada was at its absolute peak. The brand embodied this late Cold War West Germany prosperity and confidence. Its impeccably tailored skirt suits were designed for visibility and professional success. At the opposite end of the spectrum was the offline movement, deliberately anti-mainstream, embracing DIY aesthetics and artistic expression over commercial polish. And finally, London Fashion Week. If you love color, embroidery, and creative extravagance, Zandra Rhoda's fashion archive will be an absolute goldmine for you. And now Vivienne Westwood and her legendary Time Machine collection that was the absolute turning point in the British fashion. After she studied 18th and 19th century pattern cutting, she re-engineered silhouettes using its construction methods. From this moment on, fewer British designers attempted to imitate Paris. Instead, they began exploring British history and treated it as a creative strength. Westwood's Time Machine ultimately became a blueprint for John Galliano, Alexander McQueen, and later Sarah Burton. And this is Galliano himself. Officially the best British designer of the year, he was still struggling to make any profits from his collections. And it's easy to see why. So different from Paris, so ahead of its time. It is unsurprising that his moment of worldwide recognition arrived only a decade later. But that's another story to be told one day. Thanks for watching and I'll see you soon.